I'll bet that man could run our company as well as Woodthorpe.
This is outrageous. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm not a thief.
All right, today we're going to peel back the curtain on a corner of the financial world that has just quietly exploded to over $2 trillion. Yeah, it operates in the shadows, outside the view of a lot of the usual regulators, and it is starting to flash some pretty serious warning signals. So let's dive in. This quote from analyst Peter Bukvar, it just gets right to the heart of the whole thing. What he's talking about is this potentially really dangerous mix of everyday investors being paired up with super high-risk corporate debt. It's a fundamental conflict that's been brewing just under the surface, and frankly, it's making even the seasoned pros out there pretty nervous.
And that, right there, is the crucial question, isn't it? When a $2 trillion market gets stressed, the ripples, they can affect everything. From the companies we all work for to the stability of our own investments. Basically going on a hunt for an early warning system. One single indicator that might just give us a heads up before things get messy.
Okay, so our investigation starts with what some analysts call the canary in the coal mine for the corporate credit market. It's a little-known index, not something you see on the news every night, and the way it's been behaving lately is exactly why we're talking about all this today.
So this is our canary, the LSTA Leveraged Loan Index. Now, in plain English, it's basically just a tracker for the health of loans given to companies that are already carrying a ton of debt. I mean, think of a company that already has a huge mortgage, right? And now it wants another massive loan to go buy a competitor. That's a leveraged loan. And yeah, it's risky. So when this index drops, it's a huge sign the market thinks those loans are getting a lot shakier.
That I watch every single day, to put this into a market perspective, and I recommend investors to do the same, is the LSTA Leveraged Loan Index. Now, you have those are bank loans. You have direct lending from private credit, so they are a little different, but they're still a very similar metric. And that index traded below 95 cents on the dollar this week to the lowest level since April 2025. And just to remind people, April 2025 was when the markets tanked after that Liberation Day tariff announcement. So I do think this is going to be a growing big deal.
Oh, hell, let's just do what we always do, hands and hold the world hostage.
So how in the world did we even get here? Well, after the 2008 financial crisis, new rules made it a lot harder for traditional banks to make those riskier kinds of loans. So seeing a huge opportunity, private equity firms and other big asset managers just jumped right into that void. They started lending directly to businesses, creating what is essentially a parallel or shadow banking system. And since then, it has just exploded into a $2 trillion industry. For years, this was a pretty specialized game, played by big institutions with deep pockets. But recently, a totally new player entered the field, and that created the unhealthy marriage that Peter Bukvar warned us about at the very beginning. And this right here, it reveals a huge mismatch. On one side, you have your traditional investors, think pension funds who can lock their money up for a decade, maybe even more. But on the other side, you've got everyday retail investors, folks who might need their money back a whole lot sooner. See the problem? You're funding long-term, hard-to-sell loans with short-term money. That is a classic liquidity mismatch, and historically, it's a recipe for trouble. Now, this flood of new retail money, it creates this intense pressure to just put that cash to work. As JP Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon warns, this can lead to dropping standards. I mean, when there's more money chasing deals than there are good, safe loans to make, lenders start making riskier bets, doing dumb things just to generate some kind of return for all those new investors. Okay, so this isn't just theory anymore. That pressure is creating very real-world consequences. And frankly, the evidence is starting to pile up. I mean, just look at the data from Fitch. It shows that loan default rates are already ticking up in key sectors like healthcare and consumer products. Now, these are areas that are super sensitive to consumer spending and any economic headwinds. It's one of the first signs that the quality of all this credit is starting to weaken under the surface, as companies start to struggle to pay back those risky loans. And if you want a perfect, tangible example, look no further than this. Blue Owl, a huge player in private credit, arranged a massive $4 billion loan for this data center company, CoreWeave. But then, when they tried to sell that loan to other investors, crickets. There were no buyers. This lack of demand was a huge red flag for the market, and soon after, Blue Owl actually had to sell a big chunk of its own loan portfolio just to meet redemption requests from its investors. That is a direct example of that liquidity mismatch in action. And you know what? The insiders are really taking notice. The prominent investor Boaz Weinstein recently summed up the whole mood, suggesting that we are just in the early innings of the wheels coming off the car. I mean, that is a stark warning that the issues we're seeing might just be the tip of the iceberg.
So all of this, it brings us to the biggest risk of them all. We've got this enormous, systemically important market that has grown at an unbelievable speed, but it has one giant, glaring vulnerability.
Let's just pause for a second to appreciate the scale we're dealing with. $2 trillion. This isn't just some number on a screen, it's a massive amount of capital that's deeply woven into the health of thousands of businesses all across the economy. Its stability matters a lot.
So here's the kicker. The most important thing to understand is this. The entire modern private credit market, in its current $2 trillion form, has never, ever been through a real recession. It grew up entirely in an era of super low interest rates and easy money. Like Peter Bookvar says, an actual downturn, that's going to be its first real stress test. And nobody knows for sure how it's going to hold up.
And that brings us right back to our canary in the coal mine. So where are we now? Well, that current level, around 94.7, has just dipped out of the healthy range and into that standard but be cautious zone. Look, it's nowhere near the distress threshold of 80, let alone the insane 2008 crisis low of 59. But it's the direction of travel that really matters here. It's the first tangible sign that the market is finally beginning to price in all the risks we've just talked about.